So the other day I was thinking about the day that I almost died. You have one of those? So the EMTs were hovered over me, kneeling in a pool, a big pool of my blood, and they kept asking me questions to see if I was lucid, like where my brain was. You've seen it on TV before, but I was actually going through it, not one of my finer days. So, who's the president? They asked me. My typical inappropriate humor. I said, I don't want to talk about it. Have you ever had a moment in your life that made you reevaluate everything? Like totally take a step back and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? That, for me, happened on that day. And then another time in 2016, Amy and I started talking through our life together. We started reevaluating our lives and thinking about where we were, thinking about what we were dealing with and going through, and kind of what our plans were for the future. You've been there before, right? Probably recently. You started thinking about that again. And we both had some big challenges that we needed to overcome, and we did. And both of us sensed that God was telling us that there was more for us to experience. But we didn't know what that meant, honestly. We had no idea. And so we still don't know exactly what that means, but the last 3 years of our lives have been the most memorable that we've ever experienced. And the truth of the matter is, none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. If you take a few minutes and read through RV listings, then you're bound to run across several of them that say something like, we bought this RV so that we could travel after he retired, but then he passed away, and so I'm selling it now. What dreams are you selling because you've decided to wait until fill in the blank? Amy and I were fortunate, and we had a wake-up call early, but not everybody has the blessing of almost dying when you're in your 30s or 40s, right? So let's talk about 2021, because, well, you're not dead, and that's a good thing. As William Wallace was famously quoted as saying, every man dies, but not every man really lives. Every man dies, but not every man really lives. So I just want to ask you today, what is it that you're chasing? What is the dream that you're chasing after? And what are you putting that dream off for? Why are you putting the dream off? What is it that you're saying, you know what? I'll get to that dream as soon as I pay off my mortgage, as soon as I retire, as soon as the kids graduate, as soon as I get married, as soon as I settle down, as soon as my financial picture changes. What is it that's standing between you and your dream? And then how are you going to overcome that? So for 2021, I hope everybody is looking at 2021 and thinking to yourself, man, I'm going to do some things different this coming year. There's some stuff that I'm going to do a little different. I hope all of us are thinking that way. For many of us that we've talked to, we've realized very quickly how our lives are short, but then how much we relish things like freedom, how much we relish things like the ability to go and do stuff, different places, how much we really enjoy that, and how much we want it to be the norm for us. And so with all of us, we've got these ideas of what we want to do and where we want to go. And we've waited for something to change and something to happen to give us the opportunity to do that. Well, I just want to challenge you today to stop waiting. And in order to do that, I'm going to tell you about this map that you can find. I'm not going to tell you where it is because I want you to do a little digging on your own, right? For this one, this is a good one. So as a beginning, we started to travel because we wanted to experience the country in ways that we had never done before. And hopefully our kids will look back on this when they're older and realize the blessing of that. I certainly do. I had dreams of going to see the Grand Canyon that I never realized until I was traveling with my family. And there are a lot of other dreams that we've got that we put on pause and we hold on to for a while. But I want to encourage and challenge you that as you look at 2021, to start to plan out how you're going to achieve those dreams, right? The other day I was thinking about 2020 in retrospect and looking back on my year. And as I started to look back on the year in retrospect, I started to realize, you know, I see several different places uh, where the things I've wanted didn't ever plan out. They didn't ever pan out. They didn't ever materialize. And not because of COVID, because of me. Not because of the way I lived, or not because of things that happened to me, but because of what I did. And as I was thinking through it, just this phrase, a sentence came to me, and action eats intention for breakfast. That's what I thought. Action eats intention for breakfast. I started to realize that the things that I wanted didn't matter unless I started to do something about it. I had to do something about it. And so today, I'm going to encourage you in 2021 to do something about it. Now, the guy the map that I'm going to tell you about was kind of an offshoot of this dream that Amy and I had. And so I ran across this thing and I thought it was amazing. But it's a map that you can follow that shows you where in the country 70-degree average temperatures are during what time of the year. There's a guy that you can follow who he calls himself, I think his handle is Chasing 70 Degrees. And it's him and his dogs. And they live in a van and they just drive around chasing 70 degrees. That's what they do. And so they travel around the country all over the place looking for 70-degree weather. He said, you know what, I don't have to sit through miserable weather. I've got an opportunity to go travel. I have a friend that's going to go to Mexico, and he's going to live in Mexico for 3 months this coming year because he can. And he's been taking action, little steps, tiny little steps of action to get himself and his business. He's a self-employed guy. He's an entrepreneur. Getting his business in the position where he can go and live in Mexico for 3 months and still do what he needs to do. Isn't that amazing? Don't you love that? I'm so fired up for Brian. I'm like, yo, Brian, that is amazing. I'm really excited. What about you? What's the thing that you're going to do that at the end of 2021, when you look back, you go, wow, I'm so glad I did that. So let me just encourage you today to, one, come up with a plan. Take that dream and write it down. Number two, map it out. So this guy, he's chasing 70 degrees, and so he made a map and chased 70 on this map so that then he could plan his route and when he was going to be different places. And that's what he did. He started to work at it. And he started at South Padre in Texas in January, and then went up to the San Antonio area, and then to the Austin area in March. And then April, he was up a little bit farther north and a little bit towards the east. And then May, you can go look at this map that he's got, traveling all the way from South Padre Island, the southern tip of Texas, up into Alaska, and then back south down to San Diego. That's his trip. And it maps you through this process of where he went. But do you think that just happened on accident? It didn't just happen on accident. There was purpose behind it. So for 2021, my mantra is going to be action eats intention for breakfast. Action eats intention for breakfast. And I'm working, and I've tried to make changes already in the last week. I've already tried to make changes to help me be more action-oriented and not tied up in my intentions, but to do the things instead of thinking about the things. So what about you? How can you begin this process of being action-oriented? And what are the things that you're going to action toward? Hey, thanks for joining me today and following along in our journey and in our lives. I just value you. Amy and I really appreciate you following along. And I can't wait to hear your story. So let me know in 2021, what is something that you're going to work toward? A dream that you're going to say, I'm not going to wait on it anymore. I'm going to go for it. going to start to do this thing. And I'm going to take steps to live it out. We've seen here, if 2020 hasn't taught you that nobody's going to hand you stuff, then I don't know when you're going to learn. What's it going to take? And so I want you to begin that process of writing down and mapping out and then taking action on the things that are going to move you to the 2021 of your dreams. I'll see you next week. Back here every week on Tuesdays for videos. I hope you had a great week last week. We'll talk to you soon.